What's up, Finnegans Wake Action Hour people? Am I live? I hope so. I know I don't think anyone's here yet, but that's cool. Well, hopefully people will arrive, but if not, that's fine too, because I just love to babble on my own, and I have plenty of things to say. Well, actually, today I'm not sure how much things I have to say because I I'm switching to this format. If you've already seen episodes of my Finnegans Wake for Beginners course and course playlist, I'm gonna put this video in that playlist as well, just to I don't know, just to add more material, and because I lost the thumbnail I think for the original series. Anyways, this is probably going to be my new format for this channel, at least for a while, or for however long. My first comment. Okay. Hey, Adam, just kidding. Oh, yeah, great. Alan from Big Hard Books and Classics hopefully will be joining us. He says he just got off the train on his way home. Excellent. Well, that's take your time, Alan, because I just had Adam again's wake. I just woke up about a half hour ago, and it'll take me a while to get going. I don't know if this is going to run for an hour or how long it'll run, but I do have quite a bit of notes. I have some notes. I don't have quite a bit. And yeah, so where shall I begin today? I guess let me just again talk about the format. So I think my new format for this Finnegans Wake series is going to be I'm going to read a book about Finnegans Wake, and I'll tell you what book I'm going to read next. And then, so if you want to join, you can. And then a month or so later, I'll do this, and hopefully I can do these every month or so. That's kind of my intention and aim. And my first book that I did, well, actually I haven't finished this book, so and also I kind of I don't know if I can recommend it. It's at least not at this point in your Finnegans Wake journey. It has some issues that I'll go into detail more. But the title of the book was, I don't remember the title, but Joyce-again's Wake. That was kind of a clever, I don't know if it's clever, but that's Bernard Benstock's title for this book. I picked this book because it sounded like it was kind of an intro, and also I just looking at it, it had this at the beginning. It had some. Alan says 15 minutes. Absolutely, take your time. I'm sure I can babble for 15 minutes without getting to any real content. But yeah, this book had the cool thing about this book is it does have at the beginning a bit of a very nice outline that you can use for navigating Finnegans Wake to know in a very general way where you're at in each moment of the episode. So let me just check the quality of the stream to make sure we're healthy. It says good. I always wanted to be excellent, but it says good, which hopefully is good enough. And I've been doing streams a lot lately on my other channels, or no, just my other magic channel. And yeah, I think I did like 3 yesterday. And sometimes there's only been one incident where the stream hasn't been solid enough that I had to destroy it and start again. But right now the stream says health, or it says good, and hopefully that'll be good enough to keep going. Okay, so let me start taking a look at my notes and see if I can address some things that are not too exciting, and then we can get to the later things that are exciting. So yeah, let me just well, here's something I can address while I'm waiting. This is kind of a tangent to Finnegans Wake, but I'm traveling. I've been traveling since August, and the main way that I access books is through pirate websites because they're just awesome. And I just want to take a moment to mourn the passing of Z Library, which was my favorite ebook site for. Yeah, it was just It was just an incredible site because it was so well organized. It had lists and recommendations, and you could convert between formats within the site itself. So let's just take a moment to mourn the passing of Z Library. I'll close my eyes and we'll mourn. Okay, we've mourned long enough. Fortunately, there are still other ebook libraries and things out there, not quite as well organized, but maybe in the future they will be. If you don't know, Library Genesis is not bad. Anna's Archive is this new one that's emerged. Just Google Anna's Archive. I'm sure you can find it. and it's getting better every day. It's not quite there, but you can now sort by languages, which is something really important to me. I mainly read in foreign languages because I'm trying to learn foreign languages a lot, and I'm bringing this back to Finnegans Wake. So bear with me for a second. Um, Sorry, I'm getting lost on my thing. Oh, Alan asks, "Are you still in Malaysia? And could we talk about the siglas?" Yes, we can in a little limited way. I don't remember. Alan is asking about the siglas. Uh, Siglas. I don't know exactly what that term means. Actually, no, I know what that term means because my understanding is that in Finnegan's Wake there are these symbols that are referring to each of the characters that show up through the book. And there's a book that somebody recommended. Maybe it was Alan. I'm not sure. I can't remember the exact title, but I wrote down all the titles that you guys have recommended, and I'm gonna try and get to as many of them as I can this year. Yeah, we should. I don't know if you're welcome to talk about more of the siglas, but I don't know enough about them at this point. I can't really say I'm an expert, but I would like to read that book, and I would like to get to understanding a better understanding of the siglas because I do understand that they show up throughout the book, that they sort of represent the characters, and characters is a term that in Finnegan's Wake is one of the most challenging things because there is this family that is let me just kind of give the generally accepted uh, view of the family that roams and ruminates and rumbles through Finnegan's Wake, which is so I guess the father figure is HCE, or Here Comes Everybody, or Humpton Chimpton Earwicker, who is he's generally considered like a father character, and then his wife is ALP, Anna Livia Plurabelle, and I just something I just noticed. Oh, you're saying HCE and ALP, E equals HC. Oh yeah, okay. So those siglas, and she's kind of like delta. Is that? I think that's the Greek letter delta, or like a mountain. Something I just noticed recently is that if you take HCE and ALP and add them together, you can make the word chapel, which is kind of interesting because Chapel Azad is an area I believe in Dublin or near Dublin. I can't remember, but also a chapel, like a wedding chapel, and their husband and wife, things like that. Also, this is maybe me stretching it a bit, but I noticed that if you add in well, let me take a second back. So we've introduced HCE, ALP. That's the father and mother figure. Then their children are the two brothers, Shem and Sean. Shem is sort of Shem the penman, who's kind of James Joyce. He's the artist. He's the kind of the more radical character. Chapel is it? Chapel is it? Is it Chapel is it or Chapel is odd? But yeah. I need to learn more about Chapel. Chapel is it? Chapel is odd. I'm gonna kind of outline too in this episode things I'm gonna research more and look into more, and that is one thing. But yeah, the two sons are Shem and Sean. Shem is sort of Shem the penman. Sean is more like Stanislaus Joyce, a little more orthodox. It's equated with different characters in the Bible: Cain and Abel, Jacob and Esau. I'm gonna kind of look into that more too in the future. This book talks a little about that and how there's difficulty with correlating sometimes, and a lot of times you think it's correlated with one figure and then it's with another, and it really fluctuates. So this is why it's difficult to really just pinpoint characters. There maybe tendencies or archetypes is a different way of thinking about these characters, because that's one of the challenges in Finnegans Wake, is really trying to say what is happening. Mm. Yeah, so those are the two sons, and then they have a daughter as well, Izzy, and I kind of she's one of the characters I'm less clear on at this point. from what I heard, when you try and like equate, for example, the Virgin Mary, some people equate Izzy with the Virgin Mary. Some people equate um, Anna Olivia Pluribel. So there's all kind of different tendencies. Oh, I have a comment that says, "This is so great." Oh, thanks, Alan. And we have another person. I don't know if it's Al or AI. Maybe it's an AI bot, but welcome anyways. Cheers. I use Finnegans Wake as a tool for active imagination. It's not gibberish. It does require leaving reason behind. Great comment, Alum, to explore sense and nonsense. Yeah, absolutely. There's for as radical as James Joyce seems, he is almost always using things from the past. Like he almost, like, for example, in Ulysses, the stream of consciousness technique is not original to him. It was used in Charles Dickens. It was used in this French book I can't remember the title of, that I haven't read, that Joyce cited as the source of that. So with Finnegans Wake, these punning and these amalgamation words are something you find in Alice in Wonderland, for example, and so it's not something entirely new. It's just he's taking these things and he's really unfolding them and unpacking them. Izzy and the 28 Rainbow Girls. Yeah. So I've heard. So there's things like that I'm not an expert on by any means, but that's why I'm doing this more as like a dialogue, because you guys have expertise that I don't have, and you can kind of guide me towards things to research in the future, and then we can talk about it. Oh, it's Al. Okay, welcome, Al. Language is myth and allegory. Okay, nice. Yeah. I think there's a lot of Joseph Campbell in Finnegans Wake. Funniest book ever written. Okay, well, we'll explore it more and see. Um, Let me. So I didn't get to complete my thought about. So yeah, you can take the character names, ALP, HCE, combine them, and you get chapel. But if you add in I and S and S, you can make two words. And this is where I start stretching logic and really start making my own ideas. But you can make those words to let me write it, because otherwise it will not make any sense. You can make the word I don't know if it's a word, two words: leech, piss. Now the point of this is that leech piss is sort of two different tendencies of the universe. Leeching is sort of like gravitating towards what you like, eating, ingesting what you like, and then pissing is sort of like expelling what you don't like. So there's kind of this heartbeat of the universe is that there's an Alan Moore quote that first rule of the universe is that everybody's hungry. So leeching, I don't now, did Joyce intend this leech piss? I don't know, probably not, but I'm seeing it there. Yeah, anagrams. E. Cummings, to use language for a purpose rather than be used by language. Yeah, good point. I haven't read enough E. Cummings. I know I've read a few of his poems, but I need to read more. There's myth in everything. Campbell, anagrams. Do you think Joyce? Nicholas Moore is here, and he says, "Do you think Joyce believed Shakespeare was Francis Bacon, Shakespeare, and eggs along with other Shakespeare food?" Allusions referring to bacon, or do you think it was more just Joyce trying to every? In Ulysses, there's a few books that Joyce really uses in that chapter. What's the name of that chapter? Scylla and Charybdis. That chapter with the Hamlet lecture, and I haven't read those books yet, but I want to, because I want to kind of see what Joyce was working from and see how serious he was about it. I'm not sure if he believed it or not, but I think that's a lot of the part. I think he's kind of agnostic about it, but he's also willing to explore the idea that Shakespeare was Bacon, Shakespeare wasn't Bacon, and ultimately what we have is just this. We don't have a lot of character for Shakespeare, but we have a lot of his writings, which is kind of fascinating to have this vast body of a person's thought that isn't autobiographical. I'm sure it has autobiographical elements like any writing, like Joyce, of course, but we don't. It's all hidden or couched within this envelope of the plays. So yeah, my take on Shakespeare with Joyce is that he's kind of willing to consider the ideas, but I don't think he strongly believes one or the other. Um, allusion to a topic. Humpty Dumpty. I'll say more about Humpty Dumpty. Oh, actually, well, when I get to talking about this book, so this action hour is coming along very. I like the way that it's kind of just going wherever, and that's kind of what I want. But I do have notes, and I'll get to the notes in Humpty Dumpty. There's a point about Humpty Dumpty that this Ben Comstock or whatever his name is book we'll get to soon. So Al says the word I use is metempsychosis. It is reincarnation in the book, but it sounds like metempsychosis, to burn away the self. Oh, good point. Yeah, I think Joyce kind of did that pun himself in Ulysses, if I remember correctly, as an example of using language to say more than what is on the page and make the reader the author. Yeah, exactly. So I found several instances along with Leech Piss that I'll talk about of where I feel like I'm seeing things in Finnegans Wake that Joyce probably didn't intend, and some things that weren't even in existence when he wrote the book. So I'm almost sure that he didn't intend, but I like that I can see it, kind of like Kabbalah or Rorschach blot test, that you can see what you want to see. Tetralemma. We must embrace the fact that we may never have the answers to our questions. All. Nietzsche in Joyce is the least appreciated topic, in my opinion. I'll talk about Nietzsche. I have a few notes about Nietzsche and also Richard Wagner that I'll get to soon. Also Jung and String linking each. Adventures of Huckleberry Finn and Finnegans Wake. Yeah, so I noticed, or I've noticed that there are a lot of major things that Joyce kind of uses as motifs in both Ulysses and Finnegans Wake. And for example, in Ulysses, there's like the song "Love's Old Sweet Song," which you don't need to know the song to read Ulysses, but I think if you do, it really adds a layer of referential appreciation that whenever that song comes up, it helps. So I think with Finnegans Wake, there are some things like Vico's New Science and Huckleberry Finn and Tristan and Isolde that if you know them, it really helps. So I'm going to talk about a few that I'm in the process of exploring and we'll get to. So let's see. So Joyce mentions emalia. Oh, I didn't know that. Kind of like Amelia, but email. It has the word email in there. And obviously there was no email when Joyce was writing. So that's interesting. Al says, I relate it to Nietzsche as they both said we missed the lessons. I think we will continue to read more into the book for ages. He spent days on pages on ages and dages on aces. Joyce and Finn's Wake. All right. So great comments, you guys. I'm glad you feel free to keep commenting. I'll come back. I'm going to jump though to some notes so I can kind of make some progress or some headway into my notes. Okay, so the first note I wanted to mention was I was thinking about language in Joyce, because obviously language is a major thing in Joyce. And so I just wanted to say that some people say, oh, every language is in Finnegans Wake. You can find he just uses every language. And that may be true. No, actually, it's not true, because there's 6,000 to 7,000 languages on planet Earth. I guarantee you Joyce did not include every language, but he tried to include a lot. And for his day, he did pretty well. And the people who aren't too familiar with Joyce or don't know his biography or don't know a lot about languages think that he just knows every language. He did not know every language by any means, but his area of expertise was really the Romance languages, which are those languages, Latin, and those languages derived from Latin. In our modern world, the largest Romance languages are, of course, Spanish, Portuguese, Italian, Romanian, what am I forgetting? There's a few others, but those are like the main ones. That French, of course. Yeah, I forgot French. Um, so Joyce's was really, in my experience of languages and reading Joyce, the languages he was really good at. His best languages were really French, Italian, and Latin, and of course English. But he was really, that was his area of expertise. So those languages show up a lot in all of his books, and that if you know even one of those, it helps a lot because they're related to each other, and you don't need to know them all. But if you can, the more you learn, I think the better you're going to be off. And then after that, I think what I see is he spoke some German. I'm reading through some of his letters, and he does write in German at some point, and but he doesn't have a mastery of German. He's good at it. He's better than me at it, but he's not fluent the way he is with French, Italian, and Latin. And then Norwegian he picked up, or he studied so that he could read Ibsen. I believe as a teenager he started learning that, and I feel like his Norwegian is about his level of German. Maybe he can read it. He probably can't speak it very well, but he can get by. And then after that, I feel like that's like his main body of languages. So English at the top, and then French, Italian, and Latin, and then below that Norwegian, German, and then beyond that, because he lived in so many different places, because he read widely and tried to explore different languages. That's where he starts to incorporate all these other languages: Russian, Serbo-Croatian languages, just anything he could include. He would include to make his work more fluid. But I just wanted to talk about languages and say that that's where, if you feel like I'm missing any major language, please let me know, because that's just what I've gotten from reading Joyce and reading biographies about Joyce. So, and I wanted to say too, because I read a lot of different languages myself, but I read languages in which I have different levels of ability. So Spanish is my best foreign language right now. And when I read Spanish, I can read about 90 to 100% of what I'm reading. And then there's other languages, like I read Croatian too a little, and I maybe get 5% because my Croatian level is not that good. So I think the reason I'm mentioning that is because with Finnegans Wake, it is kind of like a new language in that when you start reading it, you're probably going to be at a very low level of comprehension. But I encourage you to stick with it, because I think repetition, familiarity is really what allows you to start gaining that fluency in it. And if you're not a language polyglot or somebody that likes to learn foreign languages, I really encourage you to at least try to learn one of those three languages that I talked about: French, Italian, and Latin, for reading Joyce, because I think it will help you a lot. And there are a lot of great resources online for learning languages now. I'm pretty good with French and Italian. My Latin is not so good, but I'm working on it a little too. So hopefully in the future I'll get, because there's passages in A Portrait of the Artist that are almost entirely in Latin, where the students are talking in Latin, and so Joyce clearly makes it clear that he wants you to explore Latin at least. So let me check in on your comments, you guys. So wow, you guys have gone off quite a bit. Let's see. So I see, where did I leave off? Joyce said we didn't. So Al says Joyce said we didn't understand when we went to war for a second time. The first war was the birth of the modernism movement. Like Nietzsche, Joyce was a classically trained philologist, and thus language is at the heart of their writing. Yeah, absolutely. Also, language is the mother of consciousness, Nietzsche. That's an interesting quote. I don't know if I've heard that. Joyce knew more languages than most. I wish I knew Italian, says Alan. Yeah. I talk a lot on my channel about language apps that I've used, and I also use my Kindle for reading, because you can translate in the Kindle, which is amazing. Unfortunately, the Kindle doesn't have Latin translation. It doesn't have a lot of languages that it should have. It uses Bing, but Bing has all these translations that the Kindle doesn't. So for whatever reason, hopefully in the future. learn French and Latin and you know Italian. Uh, yeah, I mean, I think with a lot of it is the accents. Like Italian sounds very different from Spanish and French, but it's really a lot of it is the accent and just a few grammatical understandings and things like that. That is the polyglot secret. Joyce was trained by Jesuits. Yeah, there's a lot in this book that I read, Joyce-again's Wake, or that I'm reading about the Jesuits that I'll mention too. Many American presidents said they spoke French. As a speaker myself, and having listened to many examples, they did not speak French. True scholarship is real. Interesting point about the presidents. I was reading uh, about one president could speak. There was a president whose first language wasn't English, and I'm trying to remember who it was. He grew up like in a household. I'm blanking on it. I don't know, maybe like Martin van Buren or something. He grew up speaking Dutch. I don't remember, but it was kind of fascinating that there was a president whose first language wasn't English, and then he kind of acquired it growing up. Let's see. I can translate German and even read, but not speak. Yeah, I think that's very common is when you can read but not speak, because comprehension always is always better than production. So I started in Nietzsche, and thus the need to read Latin, Greek, German, French, Sanskrit. Yeah, I can read German fairly well. I'm reading this book. Anyways, it doesn't matter. I'm reading a kind of a German reader that's a little more accessible than just your full text. Latin is like Pali and Sanskrit. Very little online resources you can rely on. Yeah, I haven't looked too much in Pali. Sanskrit, I know. Yeah, there's not as many resources. In general, I would say there aren't as many resources for either extinct languages or languages that are more historical and not spoken in a modern way. For example, Old English or Anglo-Saxon, I would love to learn to read, but I haven't found a great resource yet. Madison, maybe Madison. I don't know. I'm not gonna Google it right now, but yeah, it was. Oh, it was Van Buren. Oh, fascinating. Yeah. So Van Buren was the guy that has a very interesting. I think, yeah, I'm pretty sure he grew up speaking Dutch. Like his parents were first generation or something. Anyways, I'm not gonna research it right now, but I just thought that was kind of fascinating. So anyways, let me jump back to my notes. So what was I saying about notes? Yeah, I think language learning is just so fun that I would really recommend everybody try to learn at least one language. And there's so many apps nowadays that for language learning. I'm going to do a review of an app that I've been using for Thai language, because yeah, like I try to learn wherever I'm traveling, and I'm in Malaysia right now, and Thailand's my next country, and then Japan. So I've been studying Japanese since high school, and I still am not very good at it. But it's just fun, and it helps you. It makes it so much more exciting to travel to a place. But it also gives you the feeling that you're traveling before you travel, that you can absorb the culture and watch the movies and stuff. So, anyways, so I've addressed my note on travel on languages. Let me jump back to my note on seeing what you want to see in Finnegans Wake. So there is that tendency, I think, and I think that's great. I think Joyce wanted you to do that because it kind of allows you to make the book your own. But I don't know if you guys have seen, there's a reference to LSD at one point, and you're like, did Joyce know about LSD? Which is extremely impossible that he knew about LSD, because when the book was published in 1941, 39 or 41, I always get this messed up. Whenever it was published, LSD had not been. It had been started to be synthesized and like researched by Albert Hoffman, but he had not accidentally ingested it. That wouldn't happen until I think 1943, and then the writing still began to emerge. But no, Joyce did not know about LSD, at least not in his conscious waking life. But maybe it was, rumbling through the dream life of the world. Who knows? But when I saw that, I'm like, oh, LSD, that's amazing that it shows up in Finnegans Wake. But really, it's referring to pounds. Yeah, The L with the little line through it is pounds, S is shillings, and D is pence. I don't know why D is abbreviated as pence or L is pounds, but that's what that is actually referring to: pounds, shillings, pence. But that's just an example of seeing what you want to see in Finnegans Wake. There's also this part where let me copy and paste it, where this quote emerges. John, let it be. And I thought, that sounds like the Beatles song, Let It Be, and maybe Paul McCartney shouting, John, let it be. But that, again, is me seeing what I want to see, and wasn't, obviously, the Beatles didn't even, most of them weren't, I don't even know if they were all born by the time Finnegans Wake was emerged. Let's see. So let me catch up on these your comments, you guys. More Klingon resources today. I've seen the languages like Klingon and I can't remember the one for Game of Thrones, Dothraki or High Valkyrian. I don't really like those languages as much because they're cool and I like that they're included in the shows, and I think that's wonderful. But I'd rather learn, I guess, a language like Latin, in which there are, not just one TV show that you can watch, but hundreds or thousands of texts that we have available, that we can kind of hear different voices. So I think it's interesting, and even languages like Esperanto, I think Joyce was kind of interested in, but they interest me a little less than the quote unquote naturally produced languages that are already out there. There's plenty of those that they allow you to travel and read old books and watch movies and stuff. So not just learn, but live another language. This is the key to being yeah, exactly. Alan says he's impressed with my travels. Yeah, I love to travel, and I encourage everybody. Well, I think it's been easy for me to travel, or I don't know, easy, but it's easier because I don't have a home to go back to right now, so I don't have to pay rent in two places. That's kind of the trick, I think, is to not pay rent while you travel. It wasn't synthesized by then, ergo is not LSD. I don't know enough about the chemistry. I just know that if you look at the Wikipedia for Albert Hofmann and LSD, I think 1938 was the year when he first synthesized it from the ergo, and then in 1943 is when he accidentally ingested it and went on his famous bike ride. John, let it be. That's my comment. Lenin loved Finnegans Wake. I don't know if you guys have read Lenin's books. There's two, In My Own Right, and what's the second one called that he wrote? And they're both, they're very Finnegans Wakey. You should check those out because, I don't know how much he read Finnegans Wake, but I know he did read, Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass, and he liked those. So it was a reference to the Bible, John. I know. There's these things where Joyce certainly had his intentions, but I like I said, I like to see see my own things. Let it be, referring to Let It Be. 3:18. Oh, John 3:18. Yeah, that's probably what he was referring to, but I'm going to see what I want to see too. And I think, that's what I talk about, is like, it's great to see your own things in it, but also be curious about what Joyce was referring to. The quote from the Bible is, "My little children, let us not love in word, neither in tongue, but in deed and in truth." Northrop Frye opened Blake's poetry by finding the source of his allusions. The Bible is key to many. Yeah, the Bible was certainly, Joyce was raised on the Bible. Ergo was known, LSD was not. Yeah. Let's see. So I love page 293. I need to get a PDF because I have Finnegans Wake on my Kindle, but I need to get a PDF so I can get the pages accurately, because otherwise the Kindle will not paginate, right? So anyways, and also I think I haven't looked at those sections with the notes on the right and the left. I think those would be really butchered on the Kindle, so I need to get a PDF so that it preserves the actual look of the page. Some thought it was used in the Eleusinian Mysteries, LSD. I don't think that would be possible because you have to do some chemistry on it to get it from the ergo. But yeah, maybe the ergo itself. I don't know. C.S. Lewis and Joyce collaborated on Bible theory. They collaborated? In what sense? I don't know if you mean like more of a. As far as I know, I don't know. Did C.S. Lewis and Joyce have like a correspondence, or did they meet? I don't know of that happening. I'm reading. This is going to be something I want to look at in the future because I've been reading through the letters of James Joyce, which are really essential. I wish I had read them sooner because there's so much in them that reveals a lot, and you can find them online. I think they're extremely out of print, but you can find them on like Anna's Archive or Library of Genesis, something like that. And there's just a lot in them. There's like 3,000 pages of letters or something. And I'm making my way through. I want to say I'm about 1920, but I kind of took a break several months ago, and I'm gonna start again because I want to see what Joyce himself has to say about Finnegans Wake in those letters, because I think that'll help me a lot. So that's one of my resources that I may get to next. Let me talk about some of those resources that I am going to get to. Jump down here. So, wait, I got through my notes about Letter B. The book is a Rorschach blot. Yeah, I think Joyce wants us to see our own reality tunnel, to use Robert Anton Wilson's phrase, but I think he also thinks it's good. Like, we all live in our own universe, but like we share the pages of this universe with each other, and we're all kind of writers of this universe, and that we use our media to inform each other. And I think that's a good way to approach Finnegans Wake, is to have a dialogue, which is why I'm doing these live. I think it's much easier to have a dialogue, and I encourage you guys to just put all your ideas and theories in the comments. Maybe I should turn off the 10-second. I think I have a 10-second limit on the comments, so that I haven't had any trolls yet in the comments for the live sessions, but I'm sure at some point I will, and I'll have to practice banning someone from the channel. But overall, you guys have been really great and polite and wonderful, and So anyways, let me address some of the things I want to talk about in future installments that at this point, I'm not an expert by any means on. So the letters of James Joyce, absolutely, I want to get to those, and I'm in the process of getting to those. Herbert Gorman, his authorized biography of Joyce is I guess Gorman knew Joyce, and Joyce really provided him with a lot of material to help readers understand his books. I found that book, the authorized biography. You can find it on Internet Archive and get it for free. So maybe I should link to that just in case anyone wants that right now, because I do want to get it. I have it. I want to read it because it's Herbert Gorman Internet Archive, because it seems like a pretty important resource. I've read the standard biography of Joyce by Richard Ellman, which came out later, and I think my understanding is they both have different pros and cons, but I do want to read this one. So let me link you guys in case you want to get it as well. You can get it for free. Here's the PDF of Gorman's Joyce biography. Go get it, and we'll talk about it in a future episode of Finnegans Wake for Beginners, or whatever this is called, Finnegans Wake Action Hour. I need to create a cool title sequence. So let's see. You guys are talking in comments. Let us be being. Ergo, lol. Nope, I just remembered it was Tolkien and C.S. Lewis. Yeah, I do remember. I do know that Tolkien and Lewis corresponded. So let's see. There are newer versions, I believe. Thanks for the link. Oh, newer versions of that book, or you mean newer biographies besides that? I think, there have been newer biographies, absolutely. But From my experience, the Ellman one is the most complete. It's really big. But there have been more modern ones that probably have information that Ellman didn't have access to that I think I've read maybe Edna O'Brien. She has a short one, but other biographies I have not read. You've read you've read the Gorman one. Great. Yeah, so we'll talk about that in the future. Okay. Yeah, newer bios. I'm open to reading any James Joyce bio and seeing what perspective the author has and what's going on. But that is, I just want to read the Gorman one because I know that Joyce gave him a lot of material, and I'm sure there's a lot of bias in it and a lot of slanted, but I would like to read that one as well. So that is a resource I will be getting to in the future. I also want to read, this is more of a tangent, but I do want to read Marshall McLuhan's book, The Gutenberg Galaxy, which I've read two other Marshall McLuhan books. I've read The Mechanical Bride, his first book, and I've read his wonderful illustrated book. It's probably my favorite McLuhan book so far, is The Medium is the Massage. Not The Medium is the Message, The Medium is the Massage. And I forget the artist or the designer he did with Quentin Fiore, I want to say, but I could be wrong. That's a great book, a great introduction to McLuhan. There's also a lot of McLuhan talks you can find online, like audio, and there's videos that he made and records and things like that that are wonderful. I have not yet read Understanding Media, which is his most famous book, but I will get to it at some point. But the reason Gutenberg Galaxy I want to read, because it has, my understanding is that McLuhan quotes and substantially from Finnegans Wake in that one. And yeah, I'd like to see how he includes that in his talks about Finnegans Wake. I'm going to read some of Anthony Burgess's books on Finnegans Wake and Joyce Prick and Rejoice. And like I said, there's a ton of books that you guys have read are recommended that I'm going to get to. I've written them all down, and I'll get to as many as I can. I want to get to Vico's New Science. I tried to read recently New Science in Italian to see if I could understand, because I tried it like a year ago and I couldn't follow it, but now I can almost understand it. I'm probably going to read it first in English, but I'm getting close to when I can read it in Italian, and I'll read it in Italian too at some point. Oh, there's a book I heard referenced that I'd never heard of before just recently called The House by the Churchyard. This is, I think, a novel by, I don't remember the author's name. Let me Google it. Has anyone read this book? And supposedly it's a big inspiration in Finnegans Wake, and I'd never heard of it, and I wasn't clear how. So I may give that a look at some point to see where Joyce is coming from with this. Oh, by Sheridan Le Fanu, an author I've never heard of either. I guess he kind of wrote gothic horror or something. So if anyone has read The House by the Churchyard, feel free to fill us in. How is that connected to Finnegans Wake? Alan says that he just read Nora by Nuala O'Connor. I have not read Nora. I would like to read that. Yeah, I've heard of that book. And I think there was a movie, right? Is that based on that book? Al says, same here. He speaks to me on many levels, being of Irish descent via France, back to Ireland, to Canada. I'm of Irish descent too. My grandfather, I believe, I don't believe, he was, I think he grew up in New York, in Brooklyn, but I want to say his parents came from Cork, so I have some Irish in me. McLuhan is my bag. I also recommend Northrop Frye. I haven't read much Northrop Frye, and I know who he is, but I would like to read. Has Northrop Frye written about Joyce? Being Canadian. Frank Budgeon. Yeah, Frank Budgeon. Yeah, I think it's spelled Budgeon, I want to say. Not Bergen. I think he mistyped. I'll write the spelling that I believe it is. Frank Budgeon? He has a book or an essay or something about Joyce I want to read, so I'll get to that. That's another resource I want to, I almost said avenge. I want to reach or acquire or explore. Let's see. So, yeah. Al says, when I find a tome difficult, I look to the author's influences to get a deeper understanding. Yeah, I think that does help immensely. And and I think that's why the letters of James Joyce really reveal a lot of. He's not hiding behind anything. He just, if people ask him something, he'll just say, "Oh, this means that," and go read this book. And I know also there's a collection of Joyce's early kind of literary criticism. I tried to read a little of it. I didn't get into it too much, but at some point I would like to read that as well. And a lot of those books that he references in there. Al says about the Bible, the epitome on the epitome or epitome on the subject of literary criticism. This is a must to understand any book, most especially Joyce. Yeah, I mean the Bible just occurs everywhere in Joyce. Uh, yeah, okay. Yeah, so and then a few other things I want to get to. So House by the Churchyard, I take it none of you guys have read. I'll read that at some point. And also, I think Mutt and Jeff comics, I'm curious about because I'm a big comics guy. I've read a lot of comics. I'm like, when I was a teenager, I had, those, I don't know if you know those long boxes. I had like at least like six of those. I had like at least 2,000 comics, and I've read so many more. And I love comics, old comics, new comics, just the medium of comics. I did a course on comics software, the art software, Clip Studio Paint, just because I love comics so much. And I've worked on my own comics, and I have this Sherlock Holmes graphic novel slash. It's part text, part comics that I've been working on for years, but I haven't worked on it lately. But at some point I would like to finish it and release that. But anyways, Mutt and Jeff, my understanding, which is a very early comic strip, shows up a lot, or I'm told it shows up a lot in Finnegans Wake. And I've never read Mutt and Jeff beyond just like a few things. So I'm going to read some of those at some point to see if who these characters are and how they relate to Shem and Sean or whoever, and what's going on and what. It's hard for me to imagine Joyce reading comics, but I know he did know of some comics. And I don't know if he read Crazy Cat. I could be misremembering that because I know in Robert Anton Wilson's book, Schrodinger's Cat trilogy, he brings up Crazy Cat, which if you haven't read Crazy Cat, you need to read those. Fantagraphics has a clear collection of Sundays, all the Sunday strips from like 1916 to 1944, and those are such good books. I love those books. Those are George Harriman. Let me write George Harriman. George Harriman and Crazy Cat. That's his comic strip. Crazy Cat or Crazy and Ignatz I've heard different titles. I think it was originally called Crazy Cat, and then it's been kind of republished as Crazy and Ignatz. You guys, if you haven't read those comics, they are so Joycean in some ways, and I'm curious if Joyce ever read Crazy Cat, or if George Harriman ever read Finnegans Wake. Al is saying the brothers are opposites, the union of which we are meant to see through. Okay, nice. Yeah, and I'm curious to see if what Mutt and Jeff brothers. I don't know if they're brothers at all. Duality of non-duality. Interesting. So yeah, so those are some of the resources I'm going to get to in future episodes that you guys can look forward to, or you can read along too. I'll mention at the end of this what I'm going to get to next. So let me get back to my notes, because otherwise we're going to be here forever. So I addressed leech piss, my shady or shoddy theory of the pulse of the universe towards what's that song? There's a song by what's that band name? I'm blanking on the name. Let me Google the lyric and see if I can come up with the band name. The song that goes, I heard someone say, the mind. Oh, I think it's the mind keeps wandering from content to desire. From who is that? No, I need to put lyrics, because otherwise I'm not going to get it. Lyrics. Oh, it's Blonde Redhead. Isn't it Blonde Redhead? Blonde redhead. Yeah, this is not lyrics. Okay, so if you want to hear that song, I'll put a link to it. I don't know why, but I'm pretty sure Joyce did. Wait, Joyce wasn't familiar with the song because it didn't exist, but if you want to hear a song about my leech piss theory, I recommend Blonde Redhead's This Is Not. You can go listen to it later. I'll research Mutt and Jeff comics too. Yeah, I found a lot of them on Anna's Archive, that book website. And there may be a website too that posts them. So I think my very brief impression of Mutt and Jeff is that it kind of has that similar dynamic that you see into like Laurel and Hardy and kind of the Marx Brothers, and just this really contentious kind of interaction. But I could be wrong. I haven't read them in a while, and I just kind of want to see what Joyce is coming from and what Joyce had access to. I think Joyce was really interested in media and different forms. He tried to start a movie theater in Dublin at one point, and it failed. And so I think he must have been interested in comics to some degree. And yeah. So let's move on to this book that I haven't finished yet, and I tried. I'm about 113 pages in, and I think it's like 300 pages or something. But it's called Joyce-again's Wake. It came out in, I don't know, the 1960s, I think. And if you guys haven't read it, the cool thing about it that I did like is that it has. Let me give you guys a link to it again, just in case you do want to get it. It's called Joyce-again's Wake. Joyce-again's Wake. It's kind of a good title, I think, but I think the book suffers from marketing. It feels like a book that has a cool title. It has cool chapter headings that sound like an interesting book, but you actually read the book and you realize that it's kind of not the book that you bought or that you downloaded or whatever. Here it is if you want to read it. But it does have a cool, at the beginning, it has an outline of Finnegans Wake that, like any outline, it's the author seeing what he wants to see, but I think it is helpful, and it's a very concise outline of, it'll say these pages, let me give an example. So for example, on page 3, Statement of Themes, page 4, Battle in Heaven to an Introduction of Finnegan. So page 29, HCE Introduced. So just very general outline, but I like it. I like that. It's a good way to start, to just have a map of where you're at in the book. So in that sense, I think I would recommend just getting this book or downloading it or looking at the outline just so you can have a map at any point. It's a little more general than the map that we talked about in A Skeleton Key to Finnegans Wake, which, again, a book I did not finish and did not totally like. So this book felt like, though, a collection of essays that maybe had been published in scholarly journals and that were kind of collected and tried to make a little more general. I would say it's a little too intermediate. I think it assumes a lot of knowledge and a lot of familiarity with the book. So if you guys seem pretty familiar with the book already, so maybe this book would interest you. It does talk about the levels of Joyce's Catholicism and his Jesuit background, things like that. There's a lot of different essays, but I don't recommend the book overall for beginners or for just general interest. It doesn't seem like the place to start. I'm still looking for my great intro book to Finnegans Wake, and I have not found it. But you guys have suggested a lot, and I'll get to those at some point. Al Ohm says, a Jung concept that Joyce wrote about. It eludes me where synchronicity, seeing relational meaning around us. Yeah, absolutely. Synchronicity or coincidence, I think, is something that you see a lot in Joyce, that Joyce was fascinated by coincidence, and there were a lot of coincidences in his life. Vico Street, I think he lived on at some point, or things about Nora that I can't remember. There were a lot of coincidences that showed up that Joyce or James Stevens, one of his friends, has a name just like James and Stephen, so things like that. Joyce loved those synchronicities and coincidences. They were like flashpoints in his mind, and Robert Anton Wilson also was very big on those, and they show up in his work a lot. So big. When I say Alan, I see that I'm referring to Big Hard Books and Classics because he has a channel. For those of you who don't know, go check it out. He talks a lot about Joyce. Alan says, "Do you remember a guy named Jorn Barger? He had a killer Finnegans Wake Joycean site." No, I have not. I don't know that at all. Is the site no longer in existence? If it still exists, feel free to link to it. I'll check it out. But I don't know that name, Jorn Barker. But yeah, always feel free to link to anything. I don't know if you guys can link. I assume you can. I don't think I've turned off linking, so feel free to link to anything that is relevant. Yeah. So getting back to this book, Joyce-again's Wake, there have been some interesting points, and I have picked up some things. So I can't totally say this book's bad. It has some interesting ideas. It just feels like it's very niche in some ways, and it does feel like a collection of essays that were published in journals, and that he kind of wraps under this umbrella of an analysis of Finnegans Wake. It's not the book I felt like I signed up for. So so he talks about this theory that shows up that HCE, Humphrey Chimpton Earwicker, is the name is sort of three different levels or three different stages of humanity. And I don't know if Joyce intended this or not, or if this is what he's seeing, but here's his theory that, or somebody's theory that he's talking about, that Humphrey, the H, is the cosmic egg, the like Humpty Dumpty, the ground of being from which humanity emerges. Chimpton is like a chimpanzee. It's like humanity's predecessor. It's this more unpolished version of humanity. And then Earwicker is like Erewhon, everybody. Erewhon. I thought that was kind of a funny idea. Erewhon, everybody, man, Homo sapiens, the current level of humanity. So, but within HCE, he contains all three. The origin, the cosmic egg, the primitive man, which is our more animal nature, and then Earwicker, which is more modern human. So I thought that was kind of an interesting idea. That's one. So there are things like that in this book that were kind of interesting. I was another resource that I want to read that I have not read is the book My Brother's Keeper by Stanislaus Joyce that he wrote at some point about Joyce. And I heard something that like James Joyce sent Stanislaus a copy of Finnegans Wake, but that Stanislaus never read it. So I don't know if that's true or not. And but I would like to read that book, My Brother's Keeper. If anyone's read that, I've not been able to locate that. It's even on ebook websites. I have not found it. So I'm still looking for it, but I'm sure I'll find it at some point. And yeah, that's. I think I've already said everything I want to say about that book, because I'm not really recommending that Joyce-again Wake book. It wasn't the best book to start with, I guess, but I'll keep reading it and I'll finish it. But I don't think it's something I'm recommending for you guys. So let's see. So Al says, more than meaning, it creates meaning in the reader. What are we talking about? Synchronicity? Think of Bloom. He was a thinker in our age. Few still have an inner voice, let alone cognition. These resources invite us to learn how to learn and how to live. I know how weird it sounds, low. Well, I think, again, getting back to language, when you think of a word, every word has history behind it, has an etymology, has a language that usually it comes from another language. Like a lot of words in English come from French, from Latin, from Greek, from German, so on. So book like, words contain this massive amount of history, and I think Joyce, um, to read to read his books is to come across a lot of terms, a lot of terminology, a lot of characters, historical figures, and authors that a lot of us Giordano Bruno. I haven't read any. I would like to read some of him, for example, because I know he was a big Joyce influence, and to not have that, to not understand that term, for example, I don't know if I'm saying it, Giordano Bruno, to not understand that term is to basically not have the etymology and not have the deeper meaning of a word. I mean, I could read a quick synopsis on Wikipedia, but it's not the same. It's just like reading, what's his name, Thomas Aquinas. I've tried to read a little Thomas Aquinas, but I have not been able to make much inroads. I know he was, though, a big influence on Joyce. And for example, I think on the way that he moves through the prose, and different languages have different ways of structuring sentences. In English, the standard, most common way of putting a sentence together is subject, verb, object. That's a very common way of putting a sentence together. But in other languages, that's not always the case. Like Japanese, subject, object, verb is much more common. And other languages have their own patterns. So when you learn a language like Latin or French or Italian, Joyce's biggest languages, that is going to affect how he structures his prose. Alan is saying that, oh, you read My Brother's Keeper. Oh, excellent. So I really want to get to that one. Because Stanislaus appears in that Nora book. Okay, nice. Doman... Nargle Fargle says, Domine Amine, God in the Word. Yeah, there's a lot in the word, like logos. In the Bible, logos is the Greek word, but it's translated usually into English as the word. But logos is not exactly the word. That's kind of a translation into English that to make it more accessible for English speakers. But logos is. I'm learning Greek. I've been learning Greek and slowly and. Logos is something fairly different from the word, from our conception of the word. So I think understanding the concept of the logos is important. I wish Joyce had spoke Greek, because I don't think he was, and I'm pretty sure he wasn't fluent in Greek, but he knew a little. And that part comes up in Ulysses. I don't know if you guys remember where what's his name, Buck Mulligan is saying, "Oh, Joyce." Or he says, "Oh, Stephen, you got to learn Greek. It's such a cool language." St. John's Night of the Soul, Al Ohm is recommending. I've heard of that book. I have not read that either. Yeah, Alan is disagreeing with Al Ohm. That's okay. You guys are welcome to disagree. You guys can be like Shem and Sean in the dialogues here. But no, Joyce was not fluent in Greek, at least as near as I can tell. He basically knew just a little, but by no means. It was not one of his stronger languages. So do I have anything more I want to add today to today's conversation? I'm glad you guys have showed up. I had no idea if I would be just on here blathering to myself or if people showed up. It seems like, let's see, how many people are here right now? It says we have 4 right now, so whatever. That's a good amount for me. And so I think, next month, or no, probably not next month. I don't know when I'll do the next one. I want to do these, though, probably every month if I can. And, if I do them every week if I could read that fast. But I'm reading a lot of other things. But I think by next time I would like to finish this Joyce-again's Wake book. And then I also want to get back into the letters of James Joyce. I think that's my next destination, to get through the letters and start getting to the point where he's writing Finnegans Wake, so that, because I know he's going to be in the letters telling people, like, they're going to be like, what the hell is this, Joyce? What happened? I've talked about this before, though, that anytime Joyce is pushing into new territory in a book, like in Dubliners, he does things, and then in the next book, Stephen Hero and A Portrait of the Artist, he kind of uses that technique and makes it even more. And then in the next book, he uses a new technique and he makes it even more. If you remember in Ulysses, in The Oxen of the Sun, there are passages that border on Finnegans Wake level of experimentation and amalgamation of words that Joyce, it clearly was on Joyce's mind, and he wanted to do more of it. So he unblossoms it more into the next book, and that's what we have in Finnegans Wake. So yeah, Alum says self-taught does not mean they are fluent. Myth of genius. Yeah, like I don't know if you guys remember this, but when he went to France for the first time, he thought he knew French, but then when he got there, he found that he could not speak very well French. So I think that's just a major thing with understanding. You always understand more than you can communicate, than you can produce, which is why one technique for learning is to try and explain to others your understanding. That's my goal with this book, is to with this series, because it helps me to find out what I know and what I don't know. Like in the beginning of this, you guys had talked about what was it, Anna Livia and the 28, no, Izzy and the 28 Rainbow Girls. That's something that I've heard alluded to, but at this point I don't know what that means or what that is talking about. So that's you guys kind of clue me in on what I need to research more, and I'll get to it in the future. And yeah, hope we have a lot of fun with this. Alom is saying he then became interested in liturgical Greek of the Orthodox Church. Didn't elements of Joyce's scribbled hobble notebook and end up in both? Yeah, I'm sure. Joyce was a maximalist. He was not a minimalist. In anything he could include, he would. Speaking French and knowing classic French is a huge diff. We call it joual in French. Dialects can be hard to learn. Well, I heard with Italian that Joyce, I think I remember this from that comic that Alan, you recommended. I'm blanking on the title. The book that there's a comic book biography of Joyce that I read earlier this year. That there's a point where when he gets to Italy, and because Joyce read Dante, and he could read like classical Italian, earlier Italian, when it was emerging from Latin, and Dante's Italian is considered, I think, the kind of the beginning of a more modern Latin, although it's very different from modern Latin. I mean, modern Italian. So when Joyce got to Italy for the first time, his Latin was more like, his Italian was more like closer to Latin, closer to Dante's Italian. It was not a limit in knowledge, but regional. All right, yeah. So I think, though, Italian is what you're thinking of. Yeah, I'm sure I'm misspeaking at this point, because I've been going for a while, and I've been going for an hour. Is that right? Oh my god. Well, I think I'm gonna probably wrap this session up, you guys. But thank you all for showing up, and yeah, be sure and join me for the next episode. If you're able to read maybe some of the letters, that'd be a good way to find. Let me link to Anna's archive, because I think the only way you're gonna find Joyce's letters is to look through one of these ebook sites, because they're not easy to find. So give a look online for Joyce's letters, because they're pretty amazing, and there's like 3,000 pages of them, I want to say. And yeah, hope to see you guys in future streams. I'll be addressing all kinds of things, and I'll do this as soon as I have something to say. And hope to see you there. Good night, good day, good morning, whatever. See you.